Princess Alice was the second daughter of Queen Victoria. And she was very caring and compassionate. There she is. And when her father, King Albert, was deathly ill, it was Alice who cared for him. And later, when there was the Austro-Prussian War, wounded would flock to her city. And inspired by Florence Nightingale, she set up medical treatment centers. And it was Alice who cared for these wounded. And then, in her own royal family, they were inflicted with the deadly disease, black diphtheria. It was Alice who took care of them. But this was a deadly, contagious disease, so she was unable to physically contact them. It was strictly prohibited. But one day, her 4-year-old son, who was inflicted with this deadly disease, looked at his nurse, and she heard him say, "Why doesn't my mommy kiss me anymore?" And it just ripped her heart out. And so she ran into that room, and she hugged him, and she kissed him, and she smothered him in kisses. And 2 days later, they both died. So how can we explain such an action? She willingly gave her life to show her child how much she loved him. And in that, we see just a glimpse of what God has done for us. Because he looked down at our world that was full of disease, a deadly disease we call sin. And it ripped his heart out. And so he put on flesh, and he came running into our world to take on the sin of all the world. How do you explain such an action? You see, God willingly gave his life to show his children just how much he loves them. So what about you? Who are you willing to die for? Probably family and some friends are at the top of that list. So we can relate to Princess Alice. But you know, how many people have any enemies on their list? I know I don't. But you see, Jesus, he gave his life for us while we were still sinners, enemies of his. That's a love that we have such a hard time understanding. So as we go to this communion time today, I want you to remember the sacrifice that he made for you. And I want you to take a look at your list of people that you would die for. Are they here? Because if you would be willing to die for them, how would you be willing to spend eternity without them? So let's be bold, and let's take a risk, and let's talk to them about Jesus. Invite them to church, and then expand your list and show God's love to your enemies. What an impact that will make in their lives. And maybe you're the one that doesn't quite understand, doesn't quite feel God's love. Maybe you feel that you're outside of God's love. Well, let today be the day to know that through Jesus, he willingly gave his own life to show you, to prove to you just how much he loves you. So today, live loved, because you are loved. It may be a love that we can't understand, but it is a love that could never be more real. So remember that sacrifice that he made for you today.